Hello and welcome to another interview. Hopefully, this one goes all the way through. I believe all the technical difficulties have been solved, so I apologize for the last one where I had to terminate it. Um, Here we have SM Radjy, who is you guessed it, another author. Yes, there's a theme here. We do authors on this channel. But anyway,
Good.
go ahead
I'm in
and
the right
introduce
place.
yourself and just tell the world who you are.
Thanks. Well, I'm an author. I decided to self-publish last year after after a lifetime of loving to read and writing stories. And so I have been on an incredible journey. I know everybody says that the community is everything, but yeah, it's been pretty fun. So when I'm not writing, I work for the United Nations, and I do quite a few different things. I also am a wedding celebrant on the side. And I am based in Portugal, currently in Lisbon, in the big city. Although I also have a farm a little bit more inland that is currently being renovated.
Oh, wow. Okay. So not only an author, but just, very important and influential
Well, I don't know if I'm.
multinationally. Oh yeah, hey, I'm an author, but I know some people in high places and I got a farm, it's just like, yeah, we just
Living the dream.
yeah. Hey, I love it. I love it. I mean, dispel the myth that, authors are often struggling. Not every author is struggling. So some people
Well,
actually are successful out here. Okay. So they just
well,
love to write
it,
and
it'll be
write books.
it'll be it'll be exciting if I can ever have money come in as an author. Right now, it's a slow process. As you say, one day one of my books hopefully will make it big. But you gotta put in the work. So gotta
Right.
start somewhere.
Oh yeah. There's one thing about writing. It's not fast money, but it is big money. So that's what
Here,
it's
here, here, here.
not fast, but it's a large sum. So, what inspired your, first work? You know,
um, so uh, So my debut, so I write young adult fantasy, and the way that came about is twofold. The first thing is I had just arrived in Portugal. My husband and I were volunteering. We were taking some time off between gigs, and I found myself in a place with great Wi-Fi and with a decent amount of time on my hands. And I had just found out about National Novel Writing Month, so NaNoWriMo, and it was just around the corner. And I thought, well, if I'm ever going to write a book, now's the time. Right, it's not going to be when I'm working full time and have a family. Well, maybe actually now's when I'm writing my second book with that definition. But I decided to dive in, and then the question became, what book am I going to write? And I toyed with a couple of ideas, but the one that really stuck and resonated was telling the backstory to one of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons characters. So I don't know if you know about Dungeons and Dragons. I used to play when I was in high school with my older brother and his friends. So that was a couple of years ago, not to date
right.
myself, but it was a really fun process because it's a character that I played for quite a while, and so it's somebody that you know shares some traits with me, including stubbornness and some other ones. But it's someone that I've done a lot of adventures with, and so coming up with her backstory was a really fun exercise. And so that is the base for my novel called The Flight of an Orphan Thief. And it's just the beginning, really. There's more where that came from.
Okay, I got you. I mean, of course, I'm familiar with the, term Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I know it's a board game originally, and that I think there is a PC version of it. Um, but
Exactly.
yeah, like I've never been one for like, PC games. I've always been more of a console guy.
Sure.
So, you know.
To each your own. I mean, if it weren't for my older brother playing it, I never would have gotten into it. But when I was little, my brother would have his friends come over, and of course, because it's my older brother, it's someone that I looked up to a lot, and so I would sneak in and I would listen, and I got completely hooked because it was really just stories brought to life, right? It was my brother and his friends. So for me, de facto cool kids, and they each had their characters, and would just go on these incredible adventures. And there was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of ridiculous situations, a lot of problem solving. And so over the years, I guess I graduated from being in the peanut gallery and just listening and observing, to being invited to play. And so it's really, I had an amazing time doing it, and I credit Dungeons and Dragons with a lot of my capacity for problem solving, and also the appeal that I find in it. And it's something I know in the US, it sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap. I think it's making a comeback now. But for a long time, I mean, it was featured on Stranger Things, and I think it was something that a lot of people assumed it was just like 10-year-old boys that did, in their basement. But now I think it's very different. It's something people do at all different ages. People do it with their families too. So it's not a console game, but it can be a lot of fun.
Okay. I got you. I mean, the only like I don't know, I'll come more from the Monopoly, checkers, you know, probably some puzzles, maybe Uno, but
I love Uno.
stay away from Uno though. Like that's a vicious game. I mean, that's dangerous.
You can lose friendships over that.
Yeah. All right. I've never heard of people, cutting each other off at the Dungeons and Dragons, but Uno, it gets very vicious,
It's true.
So, like, what genres do you like to read, like, typically? And if someone were to come up to you and ask you for like book recommendations, what would you recommend?
So there are a couple of genres that I love. Fantasy and young adult are my baseline, let's say. But I do also read memoir, a good amount of that, and then I try to mix it up. Sometimes historical fiction, sometimes a bit of nonfiction as well. And if I had to recommend a couple of books, I have probably 2 or 3 go-tos. So my absolute favorite is Small Gods by Terry Pratchett. I don't know if you've read anything by him or if you've read that book, but it's a fantasy. He's a fantasy writer, but what I love about him is that you can read him at a lot of different levels. So I started reading Terry Pratchett when I was, I don't know, probably 15. And then over the years, when I read his books, there's layers and layers of meaning, and there's always a lot of humor in what he writes. And Small Gods is a standalone. It has some of the funniest insults I've ever come across in any book, and it's very entertaining. But it's also a pretty deep commentary on religion and a number of other things. So that's my go-to. I also love Shantaram by Gregory Roberts, and then I have a couple of authors that are for me like an automatic buy. Jodi Picoult is one of them. And then there are a couple of indie authors that I love, like Phil Tucker, Virginia McLean. The list goes on. I've discovered more and more actually now that I've entered that world, and I have to say that there are a lot of good books out there. So I'm always open to recommendations and always happy to share recommendations as well.
Well, okay, I got you. As far as Terry Pratchett, I haven't read anything by him personally, but I've read his counterpart and close friend Neil Gaiman, so it's close
I
enough.
Believe it or not, I've actually never read anything by Neil Gaiman. He's on my TBR, despite the recent controversy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is definitely a reference.
All right. I mean, as far as him, like I actually read I think 2 of his books. One was Neverwhere. That's a standalone that he's sometimes gone back to and like rewritten and expanded upon. Um, and then there was I totally forgot the name. I'm going to butcher this name, but it's like it has something. It's like Of the Gods. I don't know if it's City of the Gods, Shadow of the Gods, or something of that nature. But
That rings a bell.
oh no,
It's
American Gods.
American Gods. I was going to say, yeah,
American
exactly.
Gods. That's what it was. Yeah, so that book is actually pretty good. So yeah, if you're gonna read Neil Gaiman, I would start with either one of those two.
Okay.
Those ones are pretty fun to read.
Nice.
So about being a writer. So like, what would you say is, no, I'm gonna mix this question up a little bit. So what do you say is the, I don't want to say funnest, but I say the most entertaining aspect of being a writer? Like, what is the most fulfilling aspect of writing to you?
Um, Actually, well, this is probably something a lot of authors think, but it's connecting with your readers. So, for example, my my aunt actually read my book, which she is not a fantasy reader. She obviously read the book only because I wrote it, which is fine. I will take it. I appreciate it. But what was amazing is that she started leaving me little voice notes on WhatsApp and messages like every, a couple times a day, like as she read over a couple days, and it was brilliant because she was like, she was like, oh, I love this character. I hope he's, and then it was one of those sort of villains, and so she was like, and then she even sent me a photo of like the actor that she imagined would play him, and so it was amazing to just see sort of firsthand how you're impacting someone, and their reaction to your words. So that's a treat, and so I always encourage people to reach out. If you're reading a book and you're enjoying it, or have thoughts on it, or have a reaction to it, definitely reach out if you're up for it to the author, because they will love it. Obviously, if you don't love their book, or if you're being very critical, feel free to pass. Although authors are open to feedback, but be kind. People who write really tend to pour their soul out and put a lot of themselves in their books. So even if they're
Yeah.
open to feedback, even with a thick skin, we appreciate it if you're kind.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, honestly, for me, I'm a bit more, I don't want to say gung ho, but I'm just more like, as long as the book is done and I don't have to work on it anymore, like that's the most fulfilling aspect. It's like, it's done. I'm like, okay, that book
I
is
will.
done. It's like, I don't got to work on it. If it's like part of a series, I'm like, okay, I gotta write the next book. But as soon as that book's done, I'm like, it's done. Okay, cool. I don't know. My fulfillment is a bit more self-serving.
That's
I just
fair.
like seeing the work pile up.
I
Like,
mean, being able to hold your book in your
oh
hands
yeah,
is
that
amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like it's really, it's a cliche for a reason, right? It's exciting to see
right.
your
Feel
work
like
come
you have
to
a
life.
bestseller in your hand.
Exactly. I will say one other aspect actually that I've really loved is discovering artists on mostly through Instagram, who can then bring your characters and your book to life in a visual way. I've found that really, really amazing. I mean, God, there are some incredibly talented people out there. And one artist that I worked with recently, I sent her a whole description and everything, and then she drew my character, and I was like, oh, that's even more accurate than what I had in mind. Like it really just brought my vision to
Yeah.
life. And that's incredibly cool. Like that's really,
Oh
really fun. So I think I'm developing a mild obsession with character art and book art.
oh yeah. Art is just like such an awesome thing, to be honest. Like I don't know. I remember like just a couple years ago, I used to just have art in my phone, like just find like cool images on Google, like, oh man, that looks sick. Save it and then just look at it. You're like, yo, so yeah, art is an awesome thing. I mean, especially when you find an artist that just like makes a sick cover, and you're just like, bro,
That's
this is it. This
It's
is it. You know. Oh yeah.
it's also it's a skill set that I don't have. I mean, like
Right.
I can, you know, I'm not the worst drawer in the world, but like pretty close. So I can do stick figures, but that's about it. So I really appreciate the skill that goes into having that kind of ability.
Yeah.
You know, I guess
I
my
mean,
jam is more words. So
yeah. So, okay. So now we're gonna flip back to the original question, the original version of that question. So what's one thing about a writer that just like, oh boy, why? Like, what is this?
um, I I guess a two-part answer. First, making the time to write. because life, I mean, I meant like I have a full-time job, I have a family, and so it's really, I have a lot of ideas. I always have ideas. I'm always thinking about whatever book I'm working on. Sometimes I have new ideas that pop into my head, and there's just not enough time in the day, and so I find that really frustrating. I know a lot of authors would probably say marketing, but I'm actually, without pretending in any way, shape, or form that I have cracked it, I actually so far have been enjoying it. It probably helps that I'm not trying to live off being an author, which means I have time to sort of make mistakes and figure it out and just have fun doing it. But yeah, I think the challenge of making time to write and just figuring out what to do with all those ideas that just won't stop coming,
Right.
which is an amazing problem to have, by the way. Not really complaining, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I often say that writers don't have a creativity problem or a talent problem. They have a writing problem, as in sitting down and writing. Like that's the problem,
but it's
And
true.
if writers could just solve that problem,
Yeah,
more
they haven't
stories
made.
would be done,
That's
and
true.
the world would never run out of things to read.
That's true. I actually, funnily enough, I have a couple of friends who write, who we've started becoming sort of accountability buddies, which takes different formats. But I have one friend, we check in every 2 weeks. We have just like a short call, just to see how we're doing on our goals and objectives, and give each other feedback. And it really, it ebbs and flows with different people, but I've found that really helpful. Because otherwise, sometimes writing can be a bit, I almost want to say lonely. There's a great community out there, but I find it really helps to be able to cheer people on and have people checking in on you also, right?
I got you. Yeah. Oh no, I'm from the, like we're in an era of, writing communities. Like it's a community era now where you have more resources and you have more people to connect with, and you have more of a sense of community than ever before. And I'm glad for that era, but I'm from the other era. I'm from the era before that where
You
you're
go
on
sit
your
in a
own.
cabin in the woods.
You're on own. You're on. I'm from the era of like authors have friends. Okay. I'm from the era of writing workshops in the basement of a bar. That's the era I'm from. So it's just
But
like,
but the
oh,
thing is, does it have to be one or the other? I mean, like,
no,
by all means, like, go right in the basement of a bar, but like if you meet cool people and you connect with them, then you kind of have a community. Well, you know what I mean? Like it's like those to me
yeah,
are very complementary. Um,
right, all right. So, but I ask you this. So, what is all right? So, some authors have to use a sort of stimulus to kind of like not to write or to be creative, but just like to sit themselves down and write. So if you had to have like some sort of stimulus to kind of sit you down and so that you can write, what would it be?
I feel like there are a lot of different answers to this question.
Mm,
um, the answer that comes to mind is food, like snacks and drinks. Um, but it really depends on the mood. I think
mm.
in some cases it might be music, in some cases it might be the right snack. Yeah, it really depends. What about you?
Um, this is gonna sound toxic. I would say like a six pack of a six pack of beer or like a bottle of Taylor Port.
That is very Hemingway of you.
It was like, look, I just need something strong to kind of just like sit because I'm an active person. I like to get up and like I'll play basketball, work out, just go be outside and rip and run and things like that. So to like stay in one place for too long is just like anathema to my nature. So
I
to
see.
like sit down and so I could write, yeah. And there was actually a period of time in my life in college where I actually sat down and I wrote a novel. I just wrote 10 pages a day, and
Wow.
to sit down and write the 10 pages, it took like hours to do it, like maybe like 8 to 10. I just bought a six pack of Angry Orchard, sat down, drank it, and then just, just wrote, and then let the buzz just kind of chill me out so I could just type and things like that. So that's a bit toxic. I wouldn't recommend it. You don't have to destroy
I
yourself to
mean,
create art,
but I think it's also important to know yourself and know what works and try different things.
Yeah,
Because if you yeah, if you don't try things and if you don't get out of your comfort zone, also you might not find
right.
the right thing, and you might evolve over time too. Maybe you'll
Yeah,
change and get to a six pack of something else.
right. Hopefully. Like hopefully, because I'm a bit of a health guy, so can't
There
do
you go.
that. But yeah, so what is your like ideal vision of being a successful writer? You know, like what does that look like for you?
Um, Continue publishing. Ideally, have something come out every year or two. And I would love to work with other authors and be able to share my experience to help them. So whether that's through workshops or eventually writing retreats on my farm once the renovations are done. And I guess that feeds into to the community aspect of things. But that I think to me would be amazing if I continue on my publishing journey and then help others on theirs. And then if anybody wants to make a movie out of one of my books,
Yeah.
I would not be opposed to that.
Right? Just gotta get you there to direct it. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure it sticks to the book. You know.
Yeah, that's the next challenge.
Oh
But
man.
I have to say, a graphic novel would be really awesome too.
Oh man. Yeah.
That would be,
What? That would be sick.
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I think every author should have at least one graphic novel. Like
right.
just to have like a picture every like 4 or 5 pages, just splattered out in there, just like what?
Yeah,
Oh man,
that would be amazing.
that'd be worth more than a trophy. I just like see my graphic novel.
I would carry it around with me everywhere.
Oh man. All right. So if you could meet any author, past or present, dead or alive, and have a conversation with them, who would it be and why?
Um, that is an incredibly difficult question.
Hmm.
Um, I think I would love to have met Terry Pratchett, actually,
Okay.
because the way his mind works,
Right.
or worked, I think based on his books, I think it would just make for like a phenomenal time. It would just be fascinating. It would make for fascinating conversations with a lot of insight and discussion and laughter. And I say that because I feel like in today's day and age, in many ways, we've lost the ability to have conversations when we disagree about things, right? Like if
Yeah.
you tend to talk to people that you agree with or that are there's a lot less, I guess, discourse. I feel like than there used to be, and I feel like with Terry Pratchett, it will be easy to have all sorts of conversations that I've said. So I think that would be who I would go for.
Okay. All right. I got you. Terry Pratchett. Actually, not someone I would expect. Like a lot of people would say, like, "Oh, I want to meet, Mary Shelley, or I want to meet Hemingway, or I want to meet, Shakespeare."
I,
Like,
I would, yeah, nope.
nah,
I'll stick
right?
with Terry Pratchett.
Like, nah, we good. All
Um,
right. So I think that's all the questions I kind of have. So if you like to take the floor and promote your book, if you have a copy that you can show everybody, then that'll be, if you don't, it's okay. But you just take the
I,
floor,
this
promote
is
your work, and
I'm looking to see if I have one at hand.
yeah, like the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. So my debut young adult fantasy novel is Flight of an Orphan Thief, and it's like I said, it's the backstory to Dungeons and Dragons character. But it's a short read. It's only 180 pages, so compared to a lot of fantasy novels that are sort of 300, 400, this is an easy one. It's also, the setting is light fantasy. So I have a couple of friends who very graciously read the book because I wrote it, not because they're into fantasy. And a few of them were like, "Oh, I actually that was not scary. Like, I was daunted by fantasy, and I didn't think I liked the genre, but that was enjoyable." And I would like to think they didn't just say that because we're friends.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because I think if people are curious about fantasy but have never read fantasy, I think it's a kind of book that you can start with, because it doesn't have heavy world building or magic systems, that are overwhelming. Yeah, it's a pretty fun read. So even though I usually carry a book with me everywhere, I don't have one with me right now, which is ridiculous. But I will definitely send you links, and you can hopefully put those in the show notes, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the book is available on Amazon, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited. And slowly, I'm getting it into bookstores and libraries as well. So. It's at the Women's Library in Glasgow. It's in a couple bookstores in Lisbon. So it's random here and there, but I'm working on that.
All righty. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got,
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
of course. And we got 4 minutes, so if you have any questions for me, then we can do that. I mean,
Yeah, I would. What got you into writing?
um,
Mhm.
Rick Jordan's Percy Jackson's and the Olympiad series. Well, before that I used to write, raps and, stuff like that. So
Nice,
I kind of was always writing. But what got me into novel writing was that book specifically. Like I read that book and, it's fantasy, like dragons and well, mythical fantasy, like Greek
yeah.
mythology. So
I grew up. My
I
mom used to tell me Greek and Roman myths as bedtime stories. So yeah,
right. So
I
yeah,
do that.
like with the gods, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, all that stuff. And,
Mhm.
just after I read that book, I was like, I need to write something like this. I want to do for others what this book did for me, you
Nice,
know. And then that's when I started writing my first, novel, the Jake Matthews saga. Um, and that's out too, But, but yeah, I
awesome.
wrote that when I was like what, 14. Well, started it when I
Mhm.
was 14, finished it, um, truly finished it, when I was in college, and then put it out. And then I went to write another book in my mid 20s. It's called Immortal, and I put that out, but I just put it out after I finished writing it, and then realized, oh crap, I have to go back and edit it. So I had to keep doing. So yeah, I had to kind of fix it as it arose. And
Fair
then
enough.
I got to the final edit of it, and then now it's out. Now it should be all good. And then now I'm at another novel that's out, The Adventures of Fleeting Grace. Um, you
I like
know,
the title.
yeah, and that just came out this Christmas. So
Nice.
all
Okay.
those are series, by the way. So I still
Okay.
got to write another installment of each of those. But I'm gonna rotate. So all right.
Very cool. Very cool. Have you read? You said that you wrote rap. There's a book that I read a while ago called I think it's called The Poet X. It's by a Latina writer, but it's written. She was really big into slams, and she wrote it in verse, and it's really cool. I highly recommend it.
Okay. Poet X.
I think that's what it's
Well,
called.
it's funny enough that I actually don't read many like poetry collections
I
or
don't either. It's not poetry. It's more like slam. It's really
oh like okay
yeah,
like spoken
yeah,
word
yeah.
like
It's a
read.
novel. It's a novel. So it's yeah,
Okay, I
it's
got you. I
yeah,
got
yeah,
you.
yeah. No, I'm trying to be better about poetry, but it is not my go-to genre.
Yeah. It's like I can write it all day, but like reading it is just like, I can read it, but it's like when you know how to write it, and it's just like just some things you were just like made to write. But anyway, I think that's going to be our time. So I'd like to
Perfect.
thank you again for coming on and having this interview, and you know, and thank you to the two people that are watching, for being troopers. We love you, and yeah, we'll see you on the flip side.
That sounds great. Thanks for everything.
All right.